All right, guys. Hope you had a good break there. We are about to enter what is a very exciting subject. I know Mark really enjoys this as well as feedback from previous years. Is mind blowing math. This is on page 487. This will last about an hour, maybe just a little bit under an hour, and we'll take one more break after that before the final session of day 4 of the 2022 Master Trader Program with Mark Minervini. But for now, let's get back right to it with Mark and Mark.
Okay, welcome back. 2022 Master Trader Program. Here with Mark Ritchie, and of course, we just finished post analysis, going over post analysis, building a report card, quantifying your findings in the post analysis. Now we're going to go into what I call mind blowing math. I know, Mark, this is one of your favorite sections, and so moving forward into this, and also, by the way, tomorrow we have live trading, of course, as you know, and that'll be exciting, and hopefully we'll find some trades to put on. We're also going to be looking at the MarketSmith platform and doing some screening and show you how Mark and I screen for stocks. And we have Scott Sinclair from MarketSmith that's going to be here, IBD, going to be talking about that too, and helping us navigate the MarketSmith platform. So that should be a lot of fun and loaded with knowledge. So let's move on here to we're on slide number 488, and this particular slide may not be the best way to illustrate what I'm about to point I'm about to drive home, but it's the best that I could come up with over the last few years. I've been trying to think of a way maybe to do this in another way, but I'm trying to really illustrate something very graphically here so you can grasp this. So let's start off by just explaining what these dots are. All these little dots represent trades. Okay, so the green ones are profitable trades, the red dots are losses. And the average, or there's 124 of these dots. There's 124 trades. Half of them are gains, half of them are losses, which would mean you're 50% profitable. This would be, if we were to take your trades and plot them like this, it would mean it would be a batting average of 50%. So the average gain, as far as the green dots, they represent an average gain of 12.5%. The red dots represent an average loss of 6.25. Doesn't really matter what would be assigned to each dot individually. The average gain, 12.5 versus 6.25, is 2 to 1. So 2 to 1 at 50% batting average is a 2 to 1 trader. This would be getting that $2 for risking one, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to calculate a return based on this scatter plot, if you will, and base it on a 25% position size in each of these trades and 25% exposure, never more than 25% exposure. So how this would be in the real world is if you went and you had $100,000, you took $25,000 of your money, you bought a stock, right? You made 12.5%, took your profit, bought another stock, lost 6.25% in whatever order, or average that over the life of these 124 trades, and never once did you ever go and dip into that 75% cash. If you had done that, okay, and you did it 124 times, you'd have about 100% return. 96.5% would be your return over these 124 trades. So now I'm gonna draw some little circles around each set of 4 trades, which will be 2 gains, 2 losses. And now we're going to shift to the same scenario, same profit, same loss, same number of trades, same exact trades. The only difference is now you're allowed to buy 4 stocks and go up to 100% invested until you buy the next 4. Previously, you couldn't buy another stock until you sold that 25% position and you maintain 75% cash. Now, if 4 stocks happen to set up, you buy one, another one sets up, you can go up to 100% exposure in this example. So now with the same exact position sizing, 25%, but going fully invested, having the same 124 trades, 50% profitable, average gain 12.5, average loss 6.25. What is your return now? That's the question. What is your return now? Mark, what would the return be now that we've moved up to 100% exposure?
It's going to be the same.
It's going to be the same. How could that be? We've quadrupled our exposure. Well, here's the thing. So we're still getting off 124 trades. So how we talked about earlier about how everything's going to distribute over a bell curve. This is going to come down to your average gain minus your average loss by how many times you can turn that over. And it doesn't really matter if you go fully invested, if you were to do them one at a time. Basically, you can think of it this way. You know, if you were to go from New York to California, if you drove straight through or if you stopped along the way, same amount of miles, same amount of gas, right? So the only difference is, of course, is you might be able to get there quicker because now you're not waiting to get to that next trade to get off those 124 trades. There'd be more time, right? So there might be some opportunity cost there. But bottom line is that as long as you can get off that 124 trades, let's just say I gave you a year to get off 124 trades with these metrics. As long as you can get off 124 trades, it wouldn't matter if you were 75% cash the entire year, or if you went fully invested and put on that, much more risk, you'd still get the exact same result. So as we move along, this is you'll see how this is very important. So that's the first thing. So now, a lot of people think that to get to a big return, that you have got to have these big winners, and also that you have to be exposed. You have to have big exposure. Mark, going back and looking at your trading in the last 13 years or so, what's your average exposure like over time? What do you think your average exposure is?
Yeah, it's less than 50%. It's I haven't run it say with this last year because I've had even more cash. So it's probably even on average a little bit lower. But to bring home a little bit on that last slide too, the point being that the return's going to be the same, but it might just take you a little longer to get there if you only allow yourself one trade versus say 4 at a time or more. But yeah, one of the biggest misnomers in my view with big performance is that people think you have to be taking huge exposure all the time. And yeah, I've had periods where I've done nothing and on average have been held more of my money, say in cash on more than 50% in cash on average, over the last, say, 12, 13 years.
Right. So, and my trading has been the same. I average that where I'm in cash half the time or more. So I'm not in the market all the time, and I'm not taking that big risk on average. Yes, there's times where I move it up and we're heavily invested. But the point we're going to show you here is that not only do you not have to be in the market all the time, but you also don't have to have big giant winners. Mark has had great performance over more than a decade. I'm going on 4 decades of trading, and I have not made my return on getting, finding the next Amazon. And as we talked about earlier, and we're going to talk about opportunity cost here in a little bit, there's only so many stocks that go up 100%, 200%, 500%. You start getting into thousands of percent and tens of thousands of percent. There's only a handful of names that do that. And on top of it, in any one year, this is all about being consistent. The key to having big performance is consistency, is to be able to put down a big return year after year, or at least a decent return year after year. You can get there. You can get there with having a big giant winner and having a few stocks account for this big win, and you've found the next Netflix or Amazon or Google. But that's not something that's reliable, that you can do reliably, consistently, year in, year out. And it may be decades before that even happens, or it may take decades where you've got to go through huge drawdowns to get that big gain. So I decided that I don't want to take that. I want to make absolutely certain. When I first started trading, I was poor and I wanted to be rich, but I wanted to make absolutely certain that I got there. I didn't want to guess or throw darts and take chances. I wanted to create as much certainty as possible, and that's how we got to this strategy. And I'm going to show you how you can get there, and not only in a pretty certain fashion, but with not nearly as much work and as much risk that you would think. That it's much, much easier to get to that triple digit return than you would ever, that most people would ever think. So let's again, we're doing a lot of math here through this whole risk management section and now in mind-blowing math. Let's look at some math here. So here's another example I want you to put in your mind. So out of a year, all right, let's call it about 253 days are in a year. We'll even say we're going to even use 253 trades. You can either use days or trades. In this example, it's assuming that we are going to be either out of the market for 216 days out of the total trading days of the year. We're going to be out, or we're going to break even. So it doesn't matter if we make 100%, 50% return, and we lose 50%. It's all going to wash out over those days as a break even, or obviously if we were out of the market all those days, we would be break even, right? We wouldn't be up or down. So just think of it as you're either break even or you've stayed out all those days. Out of that entire time, we'll call it a year, 253 days, 253 trades, however you want to call it. We're going to assume that we've only traded on 37 of those days. And on those days, we've captured 2% of our equity. We made a 2% return. That's about 14% of the time. So we're in the market about 14% of the time. Now, to get that may sound like, wow, 2%. That's a big return on your capital in any one day or 1 week. Well, that equates to, if you took a 25% position, let's go backwards to the first example of 25% position sizing, 75% cash. Let's assume that that's the way we're approaching it. 75% cash, 25% position sizes. Well, we would have to find a stock that went up 8%. Okay. The stock went up 8%. We took a 25% position. That's 2%. That's 10% would be 2.5%, obviously. So it's 2%. You'd make 2% on your overall account. Do that 37 times, whether it's over 37 days, however you want to calculate it. Do that 37 times in a year and just break even the rest of the time, and you make 107%. Okay. So now the question is, can you find a stock that goes up 8% on a 25% position size, make 8% 37 times in an entire year, and the rest of the time just break even or stay out of the market? If you can do that, you double your account. Doesn't sound nearly as hard as finding the next Amazon, does it? So let's just go down to the numbers and let's break it down to what I call breaking it down to the ridiculous, where, okay, so we take it down to 10% of the time. What if we could only find 27 stocks that did that? We'd make 70%. What if we could only find 17 stocks that did that? We'd make 40%. And even if we only found 13 stocks and traded 13 days, that's 5% of the trades, or 5% of the days. So let's just say we do 253 trades. Out of 253 trades, I'm asking you to find 13 trades that go up 8%. And the rest of the entire time you trade, in the entire period that it takes to do on 253 trades or 253 days a year, in all that time, to either stay out of the market or break even. So you can still be shooting for that 8%. And if you miss it, you just got to break even. That's the main thing, is that you just offset your losses and you break even all that time. So by just treading water 95% of the time and only 5% of the time finding a stock that goes up 8%, 13 stocks out of a year, you will capture that 2%. You'll make 30%. That would put you, if you made 30% a year, that would literally put you at the top of the performers, like the best performers in the history of the stock market. That would put you at the best hedge funds and the best money managers in history. And that's very doable. So now, in all of this, right, just keep in mind, you never position size more than 25%. You're 75% cash the entire time. And your gain was only 8% on a 25% position. You didn't have to find a 20% winner, a 50% winner, or you averaged 8%. It doesn't matter whether every trade was 8% and you sold them at 8%, or you averaged 8%. Same number is going to come out. So the question is, how many stocks can you find that go up 8% while breaking even the rest of the time. If it's 13, you make 30%. If it's 17, you make 40, and you can go on and on. You can do this math. And if you can find more than 37, then you'll make more than 107%. Okay. I've had years where I've been up over 400%. Of course, 2021 won the U.S. Investing Championship, up 340 some odd percent. Mark, you were, was it 2020? I can't remember what's the last year you had you had a much bigger return than me that year. You're up over 300%, right?
Yes, in one of the stock accounts, correct. And I would just say, the way this distribution is gonna happen is precisely the way Mark just described. There will be years where you will find a lot more. This is back to even the previous section. This is precisely why in periods where you're not finding much, the goal, if you can just tread water, you're going to do really, really well. That's the goal in periods when you're